Shabbat Shalom to everyone. If you didn't recognize that, that was a test of the emergency broadcast system. So if you hear that, the next thing you would hear would be the voice of the archangel saying, "Come." So thank you for that test. It is working good. What a glorious day that we have, right? To be in the house of Yahweh is an experience, and it's a very big blessing. How much joy did you have today? Overwhelming? Some say overwhelming, some say, It's our strength. His joy is, most definitely. You know, we can find joy in a lot of different places, but the great joy is to be in His presence and to walk in His paths and to be abundantly blessed. That's the thing. Abundantly blessed. So if you've had a hard week this week, just know that the Father is here to give you that peace, give you that comfort, give you that love, pour out His grace upon you. And we come to the realization that there's only one that can make you happy, and that's yourself. You can't depend upon anybody else to make you happy. Okay? So your happiness comes from within, but also when you let the mind of Yeshua be in you, you should have that joy and peace and happiness, right? So we have that great hope that we see in this dark world, that a lot of people have no hope, or they think they have no hope. But we know that our hope lies in the Father, right? And that He has promised us protection. He has promised us love. He has promised long suffering, grace, all of these different things that He has promised. All we have to do is take a hold of those promises and actually believe them. All right. We're in Deuteronomy. So in the second Torah portion of Deuteronomy, and I'll probably slaughter how you pronounce it, but Vaetchanan. Okay? It means I pleaded. So we're going to find some pleading going on. So what we're going to try to find is, how does that affect us? Are we pleading with the Father? Or is He maybe pleading with us? When He sees our shortcomings and things, He said, I'm going to plead with you. In fact, I can see it in Ezekiel 20 says, I'm going to plead with you face to face like I pled with your fathers in the wilderness. He says, I want you to come under my banner, my covenant. So, if you get a chance, read Ezekiel 20. That's where we are. We're in the wilderness of the people. And Yahweh is pleading with us to come back to Him, to come under His bond of the covenant and into the promises that He has promised us. So we're in Deuteronomy 3:23. And I besought or pleaded with Yahweh at that time, saying, O sovereign Yahweh, Thou hast begun to show Thy servant Thy greatness in Thy mighty hand. For what else is there in heaven or in earth that can do according to Thy works and according to Thy might? So this is Moses pleading with the Father face to face, as the Father spoke to Moses face to face, it says. I'm going to look at that word, kana, is in the title of this Torah portion. We're going to look it up, and it says it's a primitive root. Properly to bend or stoop in kindness to an inferior. So he's asking the Father to have mercy and grace and compassion upon him. To have favor, to bestow, to implore, to move to favor by petition, beseech, deal, give, grant graciously, entreat, merciful, show mercy upon, have pity upon, pray, make supplications. So this is the word that comes into mind when we go before the Father in prayer and ask him and plead with him to have him bestow upon us the things that we need, his mercy and his favor. And as we talked about in the prayer session there, he will bestow upon you those things if you ask. The great mercy and protection that he showed us this week is beyond compare, and to me anyway. And I'm sure that you've had some of these experiences yourself. Sometimes you maybe didn't realize really what had really taken place, what favor that the Father had really bestowed upon you. Deuteronomy 3:25. This is what he's pleading the Father for. I pray thee, let me go over and see the good land that is beyond Jordan, that goodly mountain in Lebanon. But Yahweh was wroth with me for your sakes, and would not hear me. And Yahweh said unto me, let it suffice thee, speak no more unto me of this matter. You can imagine the heart-rending words being spoken to Moses as he had spent 40 years directing these people and leading them and praying for them and with them and going through all the disastrous things that have taken place, yet to fall short himself and not be able to go over and see that goodly land or to be able to enter it. So it goes on in Deuteronomy 4 that we use this word the other way. Yahweh pleads with Israel as a nation. It says, now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them, that you may live, and go in and possess the land which Yahweh Elohim of your fathers have given you. You shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish aught from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim which I command you. This is in the Torah here, but we're going to see that this very same thing is said at the very end of the book. Not to add unto the word, nor diminish or take from the word. So, that's something that we need to be aware of when we're studying other things that are going on in this world, particularly people that are teaching and preaching. Are they adding to or taking away or diminishing God's word? That's why it's so important to get a good foundation in the foundational teachings of the Torah, or that we have that foundation to be able to say, wait a minute, this doesn't line up. It, as we were talking round table last week, Isaiah 8:20 is our safety. It says to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to these, there is no truth in them. So we have a safety. And I know I'm probably you've found and run across people where it says, well, what really is the truth? That's one of the things we see in our society that is being taught to some of our young people, that there is no absolute truth. Well, there is an absolute truth, and it's found in the Scripture. It's found in the Torah. That's absolute because it was spoken by Yahweh himself. So, and he gives us these scriptures to be able to guard ourselves against misinformation and so forth. Going on, we're going to look at these words that are spoken in the end of the book, Revelation 22:18. For I testify unto every man that hears the words of the prophecy of this book, if any man shall add unto these things, Yahweh shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. And if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, Yahweh shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book. And Moses returned unto Yahweh and said, this is in Exodus 32:31. And Moses returned unto Yahweh and said, oh, this people have sinned a great sin, and have made them gods of gold. Yet now if thou wilt forgive their sins, and if not, blot me, I pray thee, out of thy book which thou hast written. And going on in Exodus, he says, and Yahweh said unto Moses, whosoever has sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. So if you think that you're going to be okay because you're of a certain religion or sitting in some church or whatever, and that you're covered already, he says, no, you have to answer for your own sin. You are the one that determines whether or not that your name is going to remain in the book of life. Going on in Revelation 20, and I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before the throne. And the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books, according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it in death, and the grave delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged every man according to their works. And death and the grave were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. So we find this book of life back even in the Old Testament, back in the Torah and so forth and so on. So this book has been in existence from the creation, the book of life. So we want to make sure that our name appears in that book of life. Deuteronomy 4:3, your eyes have seen what Yahweh did because of Baal Peor. For all the men that followed Baal Peor, Yahweh your Elohim hath destroyed them from among you. But ye that did cleave unto Yahweh your Elohim are alive, every one of you, this day. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as Yahweh my Elohim commanded me, that you should do so in the land, whether you go over to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all of these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Well, unfortunately, those have been so polluted by other gods and so on and so forth. All of these nations says, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. You know, the psalmist says, get wisdom, get knowledge with all understanding. So that is something that we desire to have, something that the Father will give us if we ask and if we study and show ourselves approved. He will give us understanding and wisdom. And as we've said before, understanding is knowledge, but wisdom is knowing how to use that knowledge, not as a battle axe against other people, but how to treat our neighbors and our fellow walkers in this life with grace and mercy and understanding like he treats us. 2 Chronicles 24:20. And the spirit of Elohim came unto Zechariah the son of Jehoiada, the the priest which stood above the people, and said unto them, Thus saith Elohim, Why transgress you the commandments of Yahweh, that you cannot prosper? Because you have forsaken Yahweh, he hath also forsaken you. So we see that our protection in our very existence, in our very things that we received in this life, says by obedience, right? We obey God's commands and things, then he will protect us and guide us and deliver us. It says, For the eyes of Yahweh run to and fro throughout the whole earth to show himself strong in the behalf of them whose heart is perfect towards him. So once again, we come back to this whole saying, it's all about a heart. It's all about our heart. Where is our heart? Talks about riches. Says that's why it was such a hard time for a rich man, because he had his heart set upon his riches. If we set our heart upon the riches of heaven and the understanding and blessings that he could pour out on us, then we have a perfect heart towards him. Going to back to Deuteronomy 4:7. For what nation is there so great who hath God so high nigh unto them as Yahweh our Elohim is in all things that we call upon him for? And what nation is there so great that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all of this law? If this is such a righteous law, why are we so wanting to get rid of it? You know, in our society for the last probably, 3,000, 2,000 years, 2,500 years. We've been trying to get rid of something that's righteous because we've been taught that the law is not righteous. It's bad. It's terrible. Which I set before you this day. Only take heed to thyself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes have seen, and lest they depart from thy heart all the days of your life. But teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons. Specifically, the day that you stood before Yahweh thy Elohim in Horeb. When the Yahweh said unto me, Gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. So, well, that's those old Jews back then, old Israelites. We weren't there, But what does it say when you read the rest of the story? It says, I'm giving you these today, those that stand here and those that will be in the future. So these were made for all mankind from the beginning to the end. So in actuality, we all individually stood at the base of Mount Horeb and received God's laws. Going into Deuteronomy 4:12. And Yahweh spake unto you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the voice of his words, but saw no similitude, only you heard a voice. And he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even 10 commandments, and he wrote them upon 2 tables of stone. And Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that you might do them in the land whether you go over to possess. So he gave him the covenant, gave him his laws written upon 2 tables of stone, also his statutes and his judgments. These are laws of how to live in his kingdom. Kingdom living principles. That's what the statutes and judgments are. So if we're going to live in his kingdom, and we all want to do that, then we have those principles to live by. Deuteronomy 4:24, For Yahweh the Elohim is a consuming fire, even a jealous El. When thou shalt beget children and children's children, And you shall have remained long in the land, and shall corrupt yourselves, and make a graven image, or the likeness of anything, and shall do evil in the sight of Yahweh the Elohim, to provoke him to anger. It says, I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that you shall soon utterly perish from off the land whereunto you go over Jordan to possess it. You shall not prolong your days upon it, but shall utterly be destroyed. And Yahweh shall scatter you among the nations, and you shall be left few in number among the heathen, whether Yahweh shall lead you. So we know that this has taken place, right? But we know that there is a promise of regathering of his people. Going on in Deuteronomy 4, but if from thence thou shalt seek Yahweh thy Elohim, thou shalt find him. If thou seek him with all thy heart and with all thy soul, you shall find him. When thou art in tribulation, and all of these things are come upon thee, even in the latter days, if thou turn to Yahweh the Elohim, and shall be obedient unto his voice, for Yahweh thy Elohim is a merciful El. He will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy fathers, which he sware unto them. So, if you're in a bad funk today and throughout this week, maybe your faith is getting a little wobbly. Maybe the cares of this world is ridden upon you, grinding you into dust this week or whatever. Here's the answer. Seek the Elohim with all your heart and with all thy soul, even in throughout these tribulations. And we think, well, man, it's really tough. But not yet. Not yet. But he says to endure, those that endure to the end will be saved. So it is an endurance race. It says, for Yahweh the Elohim is a merciful El. He will not forsake, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy father, which he sware unto them. Matthew 24:3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Yeshua answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled. For all of these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. In other words, don't get wrapped up too much in the things that are going around. Don't get too scared, because fear in itself is against the obedience of God. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in divers places. But these are just the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall arise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. The love of many shall wax cold. You're having trouble with your love, not only for the Father, but for your neighbor, for your spouse, for your neighbors, for your brother, for your sister. Is that love waxing cold because of the iniquity that abounds in this world? It says that we hated of all nations. It's interesting, we read in the Torah portion that because of all of these righteous laws and statutes and judgments, that all the nations would be envious, and all nations would say, what a great Elohim these people have to give them such laws. Yet, leap ahead about 3,000 years or so, and what do we got here? Hated of all nations for my name's sake. Going on in Matthew 24, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this good news of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then the end shall come. This verse we read actually last week, but it applies every week. It says, those that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. The good news of the kingdom shall be preached into all of the world, into all nations, and then shall the end come. When we therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whosoever read, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the mountaintop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Shabbat day. God's Sabbath is enduring in it to the very end. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there shall no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake these days shall be shortened. Then if any man say unto you, lo, here is the Messiah, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false messiahs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. This is one of those texts that is misquoted all the time. Well, you know the very elect is going to be deceived. That's not what it says, is it? It says, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. If you are the very elect and you're in his word, you're in his obedience, and you're walking in his way, then you're not going to be deceived, are you? Because that's what this is all about, is to be have foundational understanding that you won't be deceived. When the fire descends and a Messiah appears and says, I did away with all the Torah, here's the new Torah right here. That's what the Bible says. It says that he would cause fire to come down. So if we don't have that foundation, we can be sucked in pretty quick. You know, this prophecy has a couple of fulfillments. One of the fulfillments actually happened at the destruction of Jerusalem. That was the thing that he was telling them. He says, when you see this take place, flee out of Judea. And those that were truly in tune with what was going on, they fled out of Jerusalem 3 years before the destruction of Jerusalem and were saved. And there were over 2 million people that stayed in Jerusalem and were destroyed when they come in and destroy the temple and all of Jerusalem. So, but those people that were the very elect, that remnant, when they heard the call, they got up and they left. So keep that in mind, because there are going to be some other abominations that stand not where it ought to. We're going to go to Mark 12:28. And one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all? And Yeshua answered him, the first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel. Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. The very thing that we say every Shabbat, and a lot of people say every day, the Shema. And it goes on, it says, and thou shalt love Yahweh thy Elohim with all of thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy understanding, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. And the second is like, namely this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these. So he kind of boiled it down for us. But you know, it makes you wonder, where did he get this? Did he make this up? Did Yeshua just make this up himself and said, this sounds pretty good, I'll say it today? No. We find it in our Torah portion. None other commandment greater than these. Because if you love Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your understanding, with all your strength, then you've fulfilled everything of the law. If you love him with all your heart, then you're going to serve him. You're going to obey his commandments and things. With all your heart, with all your soul, with all your understanding. Not with just your understanding. Because we sometimes get caught up in this thing that we have all of this head knowledge, all this knowledge that we know that this is pagan, that's pagan, and so on and so on and so on. He says, but not just with your understanding, but with all of your heart and with all of your soul. That is the very place that you live, right? Your day-to-day walk in this world. He says there is none other commandment greater than these. In fact, in other places he says that these are the two commandments that all of the law hang on, is these two commandments. And sometimes we get this idea, well, man, that's pretty easy. I love God, sure do. And I love my neighbor. That's all I got to do. No, there's a bunch more. Bunch more of obedience there, because like I say, if you truly love him with all your heart, then you're going to serve him with all your heart. Going on in Mark 12. And the scribe said unto him, Well, teacher, thou hast said the truth, for there is one Elohim, and there is none other but he. And to love him with all of the heart, and with all the understanding, with all the soul, with all the strength, and to love his neighbor as himself is more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. Because if you truly love him in all these types of things, you don't need any burnt offerings or sacrifices, other than the sacrifices of praise off your lips. And when Yeshua saw that he answered discreetly, he said unto them, Thou art not far from the kingdom of Elohim. And no man after that dare ask him any questions. Interesting. So we're going to see where that this comes from. This thing that we now call a Shema. Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh Elohim, Yahweh is one. And thou shalt love Yahweh thy Elohim with all of thine heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words I command you this day shall be in thine heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto your children. Shall talk of them when you sit in thine house, and when thou walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the door, on the post of thy house, and upon thy gates. And thou shalt love the neighbor as thyself. So, the Messiah didn't give you a new law. He didn't do away with all those laws and said, all you need is two laws. One is love me and love your neighbor, and we'll be good. No. He put it all together. The very thing that had already been set in motion, the very thing that had already been said by the Father. He didn't change or add to the word. Going on in Deuteronomy 6:21, Then thou shalt say unto thy son, We were Pharaoh's bondmen in Egypt, and Yahweh brought us up out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And Yahweh showed signs and wonders great and sore upon Egypt, and upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household before our very eyes. And he brought us out from thence, that he might bring us in to give us the land which he sware unto our fathers. And Yahweh commanded us to do all of these statutes, to fear Yahweh our Elohim for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all of these commands before Yahweh our Elohim, as he hath commanded us. If we truly understand what he's saying here, then we have no problem with this. Some people say, well, there's none righteous. There's another verse that's been misquoted. If you read it, it says there's none righteous among the wicked. So this is your righteousness because you're right standing before God, because you follow his commands. Because righteousness is right standing, doing the right thing. So we see when we study the old, we see that the new is not really new, is it? It's just true. There's a true witness to what's being said by the Father. The Son is saying the same thing. And we're going to touch on Romans 8, because this is a verse that a lot of people like to misquote. Romans 8:1, there is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in the Messiah Yeshua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Okay? For the law of the Spirit is life, and the Messiah Yeshua hath made me free from the law of sin and death. So what is the law of sin and death? It's all of God's law, in particular the Ten Commandment law of sin and death. And we find as we study the Ten Commandments and all of his laws that the law itself points out sin, but does not have any remedy attached to the law. It just points out what you're supposed to do, and you don't do it, then you're sinning. Okay? So put these things into your mind a minute. As we go on, we understand more of really what Paul is trying to say. For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, okay? Elohim sending his own Son in the likeness of his sinful flesh, and for sin condemned sin in the flesh, that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. That's what he's trying to get over to us. We fulfill the righteousness of the law when we walk after the Spirit and not after our flesh. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. We get our mind off of our worldly things and possessions and things and people around us and things that are going. Get our mind up on the spiritual things that he has for us in the Scripture. And going on in Romans, for to be carnally mind is death. Carnally mind, what's carnally? Flesh, self. If we're always thinking about us, about what's the best for me personally, we're going to wind up maybe dead. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against Yahweh, for it is not subject to the law of Elohim, neither indeed can be. Because it doesn't really care about it, the law. It cares about me. Me. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please Elohim. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if so be that the Spirit of Yahweh dwell in you. It's not just an automatic thing, isn't it? Is it? It says, if you let the Spirit of Yahweh dwell in you. Now if any man have not the Spirit of the Messiah, he is none of his. And if the Messiah be in you, the body is dead because of sin, But the Spirit is life because of righteousness. So when you break all these things down and you attach it to the foundation, then you have a truly understanding what Paul's trying to say. Walk not in your flesh, walk in the Spirit of that righteous law. Go on to Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and honor your Father which is in heaven. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill what he just said. Fulfill the righteousness of the law. Live it out. Put it in your heart. Be spiritually minded. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men, so he shall be called least in the kingdom. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom. For I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So this really shows that the scribes and the Pharisees had righteousness, but they didn't have the dwelling Spirit. They kept the law. It became rote to them, a thing that, well, you just got to do this. But then they begin to add and take away from God's law, the very thing that we read about in the first of the Torah portion here. Don't add to or diminish from. But we get a whole litany of add tos and take away froms, not only in Judaism, but in Christianity. Exodus 20, verse 5 says, Thou shalt not bow down thyself to other gods, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh thy Elohim, am a jealous El, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Of them that hate me. There's another little word there saying, now I begin to understand. The iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third, fourth generation of them that hate me. If you love the Father, you're not going to have these iniquities of your father on you. You can pray that those sins would not be falling upon you, that you would not inherit anything of this nature. And showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. I love them that love me, and those that seek me early shall find me. If you love me, keep my commandments. Yeshua answered and said unto him, If a man love me, he will keep my words, and my Father will love him, and we will come unto him and make our abode with him. He that loveth me not keepeth not any of my sayings, and the word which you hear is not mine, but the Father's which sent me. So just to be clear, I'm not giving you anything different or new, not changing a word of my Father. There is no fear in love. This is in First James, I believe it is. There is no fear in love, but perfect love cast out fear, because fear hath torment. He that fears is not made perfect in love. We love him because he first loved us. If a man say, I love Yahweh, and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he that loves not his brother whom he has seen, how can he love Yahweh whom he hath not seen? And this commandment have you had from him, that he who loves Yahweh loves his brother also. My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. We think, well, that doesn't apply to us. we love our brothers and so on and so forth. Do we really? Do we love them enough to forgive and forget? Because it says, even those that despitefully use you, to love them and to pray for them. Not just to separate yourself from a congregation or whatever, just because there's someone in there that you don't like. Is that really the command that he's given us? Well, I don't like him, or I don't like her. She said this, or they did this, or that. So I'm just not going to go over there at that place. Really? Is that truly love of our brethren? And this commandment have we had from him. It says, my little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. Live it out, walk it out. Don't just say I love you and behind their backs, I don't really like that guy. I don't really want to be around him. Hebrews 10:16, this is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, says the Yahweh. I will put my laws into their hearts, and in their minds will I write them, and their sins and iniquity will I remember no more. But now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he be the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been found for the second. For finding fault what? With the covenant? It says for finding fault with them. He said, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. That new covenant is the very thing that he's been talking about through all the commandments here. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love God with all your heart, with all your strength, and all your might, and all your understanding. Put those laws in your heart where it becomes a daily thing that you don't even have to think about. Do you have to think about breathing? No. Should be the same here. If it becomes part of in your heart, then it's a natural occurrence. But here's our hope. Isaiah 40, verse 1. Comfort ye, my people, saith your Elohim. Speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem, and cry unto her that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she hath received of Yahweh's hand double for all of her sins. The voice of him that cry in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of Yahweh, make straight in the desert a highway for our Elohim. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. And the honor of Yahweh shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of Yahweh has spoken it. What a promise. What a promise. What a hope that we have. That this old sinful world is going to pass away, and that there's going to be righteousness abounding everywhere in the new land. Well, we're running just a little bit late. I'm going to try to end here, but also afterwards, Brother Kim has asked for about 5-7 minutes to come and to talk. I think he has something that he wanted to show us also. So this very thing, just to make these connections. In Luke 3:2 is a direct quote from Isaiah that we just read. So everything that we find in the New Testament, we can find in the Old Testament. We make those connections because it shows that God doesn't change. Doesn't change his mind, doesn't change his laws. He doesn't change anything. In Luke 3:2-6, you can read it. It's the very thing. It says, and this actually is being said by John the Baptist to the high priest and to those that come in the wilderness to see what he was doing. It says he came into all the country about Jordan, preaching the baptism of repentance for the remission of sins, as it is written in the book of the words of Isaiah the prophet, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of Yahweh, make his path straight. All flesh shall see the salvation of Yahweh. Well, it walked among them. A lot saw it. Some didn't want to see it. So it'll probably be the same in the end. There'll be some that want to see it and will recognize it, others that won't. And in Luke, he winds up saying, John answered, saying unto them all, I indeed baptize you with water, but one mightier than I cometh, the latchet of whose shoes I am not worthy to unloose. He shall baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire, whose fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge his floor, and will gather the wheat into his garner, but the chaff he will burn with fire unquenchable. So here's John speaking latter-day prophecy here, that this will take place. So, to sum it all up, I would think Yahweh is pleading with us today to walk and live in the Spirit and not in the flesh. I hope that is the message that you got out of this Torah portion, even in your own readings, because that is the message that he sends almost every week. So we're going to say Shabbat Shalom. And praise Yah for his manifold blessings. So those that have watched us on Facebook, thank you for spending your Shabbat morning with us. I hope that it's been a blessing. Maybe you can share this with other people that you come in contact with, that to share the word, because that's what we're called to do. So Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Thank you for watching a teaching from Emet HaTorah. If you are ever in the Odessa area, we would love to welcome you to our Shabbat service, 11 a.m. every Sabbath. For more information or for more teachings, feel free to find us on the web, www.emethatorohodessa.com. Also, you can find us on Facebook. Thank you. God bless you and your family. Shalom.